Good afternoon. We'll call to order the meeting of the New Ulm Public Utilities Commission for the month of April. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I'd offer the motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Public Utilities of March 28th, 2017.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? We have a motion and second to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Public Utilities Commission held March 28th, 2017. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. We will now hold a public hearing to receive comments on Part 2 of the Wellhead Protection Plan to be in compliance with Minnesota Rule 4720.5350, Subpart 4. Mr. Brown?
We weren't expecting anybody to show up anyway, but we have to have the hearing. I just sent out about 14 copies to officials in Nicollet County, where most of our wells are, and here in Brown County, where the remainder of our wells are. And they have had a 60-day period to submit any comments. I have not received any, so that's the purpose of the open, this meeting. Just a little bit, just to go through this. This is almost the last step with this 10-year project of updating the wellhead protection plan. And so this portion of it has the least amount of changes and the least amount of technical work that went into it. The first half that we did a year ago had more technical changes and things. This document that we have now, Part 2, primarily serves for us to put down what we plan to do for the next 10 years. And in past plans, you put down what your plans were, but there was no calendar, there was no accountability or anything. Well, this one now, we have a few things down, and we have a timeline, like what we're supposed to do in 2017, and so on. And then we document those things. So if the state comes and they say, okay, you said you were going to do so many educational things in 2018, what's your documentation to show that you did that? So that's the main change we have. If there are any questions about that, I might try to answer them.
You sent notice of this hearing to 60 people, and the 60 people are who?
Commissioners from the counties, Nicollet and Brown County, this Soil Conservation and Water District administrators, Planning and Zoning county offices. They got the document, and they had the opportunity to provide any comments, and they didn't. We did the same thing for them in the first half of this plan. We didn't get any comments then either. Okay. So it's not unusual to happen. So we can close the open hearing, and there were no comments to be received.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here who does want to be heard at the open hearing? I don't see anyone.
So is there a motion to be made? Because the motion is opening the hearing.
I'm sorry, you're correct. Let's do that first, and then I'll call for comments again. And
Okay. So I'll make the motion to open a public hearing to receive comments on Part 2 of the Wellhead Protection Plan to comply with Minnesota Rule 4720.5350, Subpart 4.
I'll second.
is there any discussion on the motion? We have a motion and second to open a public hearing to receive comments on Part 2 of the Wellhead Protection Plan to comply with Minnesota Rule 4720.5350, Subpart 4. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, I'm going to ask again if there's anybody here who would like to be heard at the public hearing. And to note that Mr. Brown looked out in the hallway, I assume, to check to see if anybody was waiting, and it sounds like nobody seems to be here.
I'll make a motion to incorporate comments appropriate in the final wellhead protection plan and authorize staff to submit the final wellhead protection plan to the Minnesota Department of Health.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, we have a motion and second to incorporate the comments, which sounds like there weren't really any, to incorporate that information in the final wellhead protection plan and authorize staff to submit the final wellhead protection plan to the Minnesota Department of Health. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, and we will close the public hearing. Next, we have our Utilities Director report.
Thank you, President Heine, Commission members. A couple of items to note here. Something that I've taken notice of recently is the Electric Distribution Department recently has converted streetlight fixtures on South Broadway from 2nd South down to 20th South. And I think the results are quite remarkable there. We've got now very high efficiency and long-lived equipment in place, but the results on the ground are really remarkable when you see the lighting down in the pedestrian corridors adjacent to Broadway, and also take a look out for 20th as well. I think it's quite an improvement. Also want to note that PUC staff participated in the home show, and William Swanson coordinated that effort on our behalf from March 24th to 26th. Had a number of people stop by the booth, and one of the important things that came out of that effort was a renewable energy survey, where there was quite a large proportion of New Ulm residents that took part in that survey, and quite a lot of interest in solar energy in particular. So we're examining the results of that survey and planning to do some development work on a smaller scale community renewable energy project here over the coming months. And then lastly, I would note that our integrated resource plan that we've been talking about with our long-term power committee, that is now out for consideration by various consulting firms. And our utility engineer tells me that we've received notice that 4 firms of, I would say, national prominence are interested in considering proposing for that effort. So that's the highlights for the last month. I would note that our employee of the month from the PUC is Joel Fromm, our construction chief. And Joel's been employed with the public utilities since May of 1979. Joel has a great work ethic and takes great pride in doing his work. He's always willing to share his knowledge with his fellow coworkers and has been a great role model. So we'd like to recognize Joel Fromm, Construction Chief, as a great asset to the New Ulm Public Utilities.
Okay, thank you, Joel.
I'd offer the motion to receive and order file the report regarding utility operations during the month of April 2017.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? We have a motion and second to receive and order filed the report regarding utility operations during the month of April 2017. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Under new business, we have a scholarship to consider.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. I'd like to just do a quick update on the MMUA scholarship, Tom Bovitz scholarship. So we picked the local winner, Kendra Corman from Cathedral High School. So congratulations to Kendra. And that's been submitted to the MMUA for their statewide judging. And at this point, I'd like to consider awarding a local scholarship, local award of $500 to Kendra. And then in mid-May, we should be hearing the results back from the MMUA as far as the top statewide winners. Are there any questions?
So last year we added a $500 local, correct? Last year was the first year, and I think we had one
Yeah,
last year.
that's-
How many
that's
did we have
correct.
this year?
I guess there were a total of 3 essays that were submitted this year, and I think out of those 3, they were all very well done. We actually brought in a few other people to assist in judging as well, so.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'd offer the motion to receive notice of the New Ulm Public Utilities Commission submittal of Kendra Corman's essay to the Minnesota Municipal Utility Association's Tom Bovett Scholarship Program and to award Ms. Corman a $500 local prize. Congratulations to Kendra Corman of Cathedral High School.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and second to receive notice of the New Ulm Public Utilities Commission's submittal of Kendra Corman's essay to MMUA's Tom Bovitz Scholarship Program and to award Ms. Corman a $500 local prize. Congratulations to Kendra of Cathedral High School. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. Next, we have a settlement agreement to consider.
Thank you, President Heine, Commission members. Back on December 27th, 2016, we had a closed session with the NUPUC to discuss a proposed settlement offer from the Hutchinson Utilities Commission, and this was related to an overcharging for natural gas that occurred. This overcharging was a result of erroneous meters managed by the Hutchinson Utilities Commission. Those meters measure the volume of gas delivered to New Ulm from the Hutchinson pipeline, and the Hutchinson staff determined that the cause of the error on these meters was the inability of the meters to compensate for the variability in the specific gravity of the density of the natural gas. The error in the metering was most pronounced from a period of January of 2013 through July of 2015. And in July of 2015, the Hutchinson Utilities Commission installed specific gravity correction devices on the meter, so they're now compensating for specific gravity. The Hutch Utilities subsequently calculated the amount of the overcharging to the New Ulm Public Utilities and determined that it was 317,404 decatherms or MCF of natural gas, and that the market value of that gas during the period in question was $1,298,645.98. PUC staff has compared Hutch calculations to our own internal calculations and calculations conducted by a consultant on our behalf, and we found that the quantities compare favorably. So we've been waiting here since December for a global settlement, and have been hopeful that a global settlement could be reached between the Hutchinson Utilities, New Ulm, City of Fairfax, and the Heartland Corn Products. However, we've got an ongoing situation with the meters at Heartland Corn Products, and we haven't been able to make any progress with them on this accord. So as such, City Attorney Roger Hippert has prepared a draft settlement agreement, and we're intending to send this draft agreement to the Hutchinson Utilities Commission for their consideration.
Madam President and Commissioners, if I could just comment briefly. Initially, this agreement and settlement would have been tied in with a pending claim on behalf of Heartland Corn Products arising out of the same meter issues. Heartland has been unwilling to work with us to have a global settlement, and at this point, our recommendation is that New Ulm try and settle up directly with Hutchinson. The issue is also part of a broader issue that currently is in arbitration, which has been in abeyance for months. Nothing is actively happening with it. In that proceeding, New Ulm is also represented by an attorney appointed through the League of Minnesota Cities Trust, James Strawman. I've had Mr. Strawman review the language of the proposed settlement. We made some changes to it, so the document that we would submit would be slightly different than what's in the agenda packet. The amount is the same. Essentially, all we would be doing is releasing Hutchinson from the claims that New Ulm has. It wouldn't go any further than that. So the next step would be, if the commission authorizes it, we would then forward this and present it to Hutchinson Public Utilities, ask them to accept it, sign it, and pay the amount that's required.
Quick question for you, Roger. Does Heartland and Fairfax also have money coming from this particular?
Where things stand at this point, Fairfax would receive nothing, and they're not contesting or challenging that.
Okay.
Heartland would be receiving, I believe it's around $400-some thousand.
Okay.
I think our staff is satisfied that if Hutchinson's willing to pay that to Heartland, we think there could be some argument by Hutchinson, but if they're willing to pay it, it's not our money.
Yep.
That we are getting everything that we should be getting. And I think, I know staff has put an awful lot of work into this, and I think Chris Manderfeld and Dave O'Brien in particular, the fact that this money is going to get paid out is in large part due to the work that they've put into this, so.
Thank you. I'd offer the motion to direct the city attorney to submit a settlement agreement to the Hutchinson Utility Commission for consideration, intending to resolve the metering error and resultant overbilling for natural gas the Hutchinson Utilities Commission charged to the New Ulm Public Utilities Commission for the period from January 2013 through July of 2015.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion on that motion? Okay, we have a motion and second to direct the city attorney to submit a settlement agreement to the Hutchinson Utilities Commission for consideration, intending to resolve the metering error and resultant overbilling for natural gas the Hutchinson Utilities Commission charged to the New Ulm Public Utilities Commission for the period from January 2013 through July 2015. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is to consider purchasing equipment for the wastewater treatment department.
Hello, this item is for considering purchasing a comminutor, shredder, or grinder for the 20th Street lift station. This is part of their ongoing plan or effort to reduce foreign materials from getting to the wastewater plant. They installed bar screens here a few years ago, and they're taking out a significant portion of that. But the one thing that is getting through are these flushable wipes and rags. And the comminutor or grinder is intended to grind and shred them to small enough particle size that they can pass through the system without disrupting the wastewater plant. And then they're smaller surface area, they'll break down quicker and have less effect than they're currently having on our wastewater system. Right now, we're having a problem with some of them settling out in the wet well and the primary clarifier when they get out to the wastewater plant. If there's any questions, we did get another quote from Electric Pump. The Vogelsong quote was about $20,000 cheaper than the nearest competitor. And this is just the equipment.
I think it's kind of cute that the manufacturer of a piece of equipment like that, Vogelsong, I think that translates bird song in German, so just kind of a little aside there.
I'll offer the motion to authorize wastewater staff to purchase. Can you pronounce that again, Dan?
Vogelsong.
Comminutor shredder equipment from Vogelsong for the 20th Street lift station in the amount of $47,898.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? We have a motion and second to authorize wastewater staff to purchase comminutor shredder equipment from Vogelsong for the 20th Street lift station in the amount of $47,898. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And that motion carries. And the next item on the agenda, I assume, relates to the same piece of equipment?
This would be the construction services agreement to have the commoner installed. Reason we broke them up is we didn't know if we'd have all our quotes back in time for this meeting for the construction services part of this. The winning bidder or proposal was Rice Lake Construction, who are the people that are working on the ATAD right now in the 20th Street lift station. We got 2 competing quotes from Gritter and Magny Construction, and this one is $2,000 cheaper than the closest bidder, which would have been Magny. So this is just getting the commoner installed.
So Dan, we budgeted 100,000 for this project. We're at 60. Is that good, or will there be other things that
This should be everything right
then so
now,
we're under
unless there's
a
some
bit?
very minor things that may pop up, but we're anticipating this to be everything.
I'll make a motion to authorize wastewater staff to approve construction service with Rice Lake Construction for commoner shredder equipment replacement in the amount of $12,988.
I'll second.
Any discussion? On the motion and second to authorize wastewater staff to approve construction services with Rice Lake Construction for commoner shredder equipment replacement in the amount of $12,988. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the motion carries. The next item on the agenda is related to IT services.
Yes, good afternoon. The system that we currently use for collecting our meter reads is called Itron's MVRS system. That system has gotten to be pretty old, and they've decided to phase that out. The end of life for that system is coming up in a few years. Right now, they have they're trying to get people to migrate over to their newer system, which is called Field Collection Services, Field Collection System FCS. And for 2017, that's no charge to us to do that upgrade. And all we would need to do is to engage them for their professional services for installation and training for that. So that is what the professional services engagement is.
So Nate, is there a time frame when they are offering the upgrade for free?
You know,
do we need to jump on this now, or is this a?
Yeah, they're not really saying. When I asked the sales reps about it, they said 2017 for sure, but they really couldn't guarantee anything
Okay.
beyond that.
And 2021, it's totally done supporting, so.
Right, yes. At that point, we wouldn't be able to get
Right.
support for it. I mean, the system would continue to work, but if we had any problems with it, obviously, we wouldn't be able to get any help with it. Yeah, there are some additional benefits to going to the new system as well, in that our current system, it runs on a standalone computer, just a standard workstation. The new system is really designed for bigger utilities, and so it would actually have a server component that would run on a server. It would get backed up, and it has an enterprise-grade database. And, you know, it's a beefier system.
Do we currently have a service agreement with them on our existing system?
Yes, but that is it's a support agreement, and so they help us with when we have problems with the current system. The new system would require an implementation time period, so they would actually have to have implementation staff engaged, and they would do the installation for us. So the maintenance services that we already pay for would cover that.
So is a 24-hour block sufficient?
Yes, it should be. The time frame that they kind of estimated was between 8 to 16 hours, and that would include the training time as well. It's not a very complicated thing to do the install. but they felt that that would be more than sufficient. In fact, they offered some other options to use the leftover hours, specifically for report creation or additional training. So when new staff come on board, we'd be able to offer them the same training that the current staff get.
So going into future years, would we go back to more of a service agreement?
Yes.
Not the 24
Yeah,
hour.
this would just be for the
one-time,
implementation.
okay.
And yeah, then we would, as soon as the system goes in, it would be the regular maintenance agreement, correct?
I'd offer the motion to authorize a 24-hour block service engagement from Itron.
I'll second.
Any additional discussion? The motion and second to authorize a 24-hour block service engagement from Itron. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the motion carries. The next item is to consider authorizing purchase of a utility service body and crane.
That's correct. President Heine and Commission members, this is a fiberglass service body for the Gas Department Unit number 68. Now, there were two body types that that were quoted off the state contract. So the Gas Department is intending to purchase fiberglass body listed as number 1 on your agenda item at a cost of $49,336.70 from the supplier ABM Equipment and Supply.
I'll make a motion to authorize staff to purchase a utility service body and crane for unit number 68 for the gas department.
I'll second.
Any discussion? On the motion and second to authorize staff to purchase a utility surface body and crane for unit number 68 for the gas department. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item relates to budget allowances for funding sewer and water upgrades.
President Heine and Commission members, this is really just an introduction to this topic. We have this area of the city located out on mainly 20th North Street, from North Broadway to North Front. And during the reconstruction of Highway 15, back in about 2004, 15 was reconstructed from the northwestern corner of the city, I think down to right about 7th North and the junction with Highway 14 there. So MnDOT rebuilt 20th Street, or they paved it and built it up so that it could serve as a bypass during the construction. And under normal development circumstances, before any streets are paved, the city code, section 6.22, requires the installation of sewer and water mains prior to the installation of the streets. However, in this case, we didn't have that, so now we've got street that's provided access to property, and we've had some development occur. As a result, there's been quite a bit of building development, actually, most of them low water use types of improvements, but there are some businesses operating out in that area that don't have access to full city sewer and water. In addition, the community development director feels that there are some parcels of property out there that would develop and are interested in development, but more of a higher density development, and that the lack of sewer and water utilities may be preventing that from happening. Another concern that we also have now with the structures out adjacent to this area, our water system only extends as far as 19. So we don't have water extending north along Front up to 20th, and then likewise westerly along 20th Street. So we aren't able to utilize our municipal water system to protect from fires out there. We've looked at this, and City Engineering Department has prepared preliminary cost estimates to extend the sewer and water on both 20th and North Front. Sewer improvements would require a small lift station, and all-in utility costs are estimated to be about $335,000, and an additional $122,000. So the total preliminary cost for utility, sewer and water is right at $457,000. When you look at that, the area that's serviceable by these improvements, there's about almost 15 acres of land, and it ends up being, with these preliminary estimates, $31,000 per acre. And when you break that down further to that of a typical quarter-acre residential lot, that's about $7,766 for both utilities to the edge of the property. And you can compare that to if there weren't municipal utilities available and the folks that want to develop had to do so with private systems. The number that I hear at this time is about $10,000 apiece for both a well and another $10,000 for a septic. So I think it's safe to say that if we can fund these extensions, they're a cost-effective extension of utility service. One potential risk here is if we extend the utilities, there's no guarantee that the properties yet to develop will ever develop and connect to the system. I think that we would plan to develop a connection policy for the already developed areas and give them a time frame for connection. I know in the past, in similar situations, we've given, I believe, out to 5 years for adjacent properties to connect, if they're operating on private systems, to the municipal system, to give them some time to depreciate those investments. But there may not be the density that we're intending for in this prior analysis. So to help soften the blow, so to speak, the Community Development Department has offered to help us research possible funding methods, including tax increment financing or tax abatement, to allow for connection at a cost-effective rate. So we'll be if you direct us to go forward and start to analyze this a bit more, we'll be working with the Community Development Department to locate alternative sources of funding as well. So just in summary here, again, the utilities are typically petitioned by the developer to the city at the time of development, and they're constructed along with the city streets, and those installations are then assessed back to the developers and spread out amongst the sold lots. But because of the situation that occurred here in 20th Street being developed as a bypass, we've got a unique situation, and I think that we can take some proactive steps to resolve the utility service to the existing properties, improve public safety, and hopefully to turn out some additional development in this area.
I understand this is so you can get some numbers together and look at how this can be done. Two questions I would have is, eventually, would there be a public hearing for the property owners out there on this improvement? And would it also include street improvements and sidewalk improvements?
As to the public hearing, I don't think that we're planning to assess the improvements here to the property, so my understanding is that a public hearing would not be necessary.
Right.
That's correct?
So the PUC improvements would not be assessed at all?
That's right. The project costs
Yeah.
will be recaptured at the time of connection.
Okay.
If a property chooses to or is required to connect because of maintaining compliance with the existing
Okay.
city code, they would then
Yeah.
pay at that time. And then as far as the sidewalks,
For street?
there's no plans for sidewalk or street improvements other than to patch the street,
Patch up the repair from
That's right.
putting in the, okay,
repair trenches.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd offer the motion to direct the NUPUC staff to include 2018 budget allowances for the funding of sewer and water utility upgrades in the 20th North Street and North Front Street area of the city to be reimbursed with future connection charges and other municipal revenue sources.
I'll second.
Is there any additional discussion on the motion? On the motion and second to direct NUPUC staff to include 2018 budget allowances for the funding of sewer and water utility upgrades in the 20th North Street and North Front Street area of the city to be reimbursed with future connection charges and other municipal revenue sources. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. The next item on the agenda is to consider declaring surplus property.
Commissioners, we have some electric production department equipment, spare relays, timers, and solenoids. And natural gas department has 19 mercury connectors that have been removed from service, were formerly involved on large industrial meter sets.
I'll make a motion to declare electric production parts and gas department mercury correctors as surplus property and authorize disposition pursuant to the requirements of the city code and charter.
Second.
Any discussion? We have a motion and second to declare electric production parts and gas department mercury correctors as surplus property and authorize disposition pursuant to the requirements of the city code and charter. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item is our evaluation of list of claims paid and to be paid.
I'll offer the motion to accept the list of claims paid in the amount of $1,700,054.84 and approve the list of claims to be paid in the amount of $415,400.05.
Second.
Any discussion? We have a motion and second to accept the list of claims paid in the amount of $1,754.84 and approve the list of claims to be paid in the amount of $415,400.05. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The last item on the agenda is to consider going into closed session to discuss possible litigation. Do we need a motion for that, or should I just proceed to closed session as suggested by the,
I think a motion would be appropriate.
okay?
I would move that we enter into closed session to discuss possible litigation with a gas pipeline issue.
I'll second.
All those in favor of the motion to,
You
yeah,
just need to state that.
do I
For
state
the-
that after the motion passes?
Well, I have one quick question. If we need to take action after the closed section, does that enter into how we should have this motion put out?
We discussed this, Madam President and Commissioners. I think it would be possible for the commission to vote to close this session to allow us to discuss the possibility of this litigation. Depending upon the decision that would be made by the commission, if you were going to be taking formal action that would require a vote, you would either have to then reconvene the regular meeting, or you'd have to call a special meeting. So I think we could close this for the purpose of this discussion. And if you wanted to reconvene it, I mean, there are members of the public who would want to wait, or the press, they would be brought back in if you were going to reconvene. Otherwise, if the meeting were concluded without any formal action being taken, we would just be done.
And we would need a special meeting if we decided to.
If there was going to be action taken in the future, right?
I guess I'd like my motion to read that we could reconvene and take action if necessary tonight.
Well, do we need that in the motion, or do we just not adjourn
We can do it that
before
way
the
too.
closed session? Does that make sense?
As long as it's clear that there is a possibility that the open meeting might be reconvened after the discussion tonight, so that anyone who would want to attend would have the ability to do that. But if the motion is granted, then we would be going into closed session now.
Okay, so there's some language that I need to place on the record, but why don't we first take a vote on the motion whether or not to go into closed session. So we had a motion and second to go into closed session to discuss possible litigation related to unpaid, unaccounted for gas volumes transported to the Fairfax gas pipeline to the Heartland Corn Products ethanol plant. Is that a fair characterization of the motion? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The New Ulm Public Utilities Commission will convene a closed session in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 13D.05 Subdivision 3B to discuss possible litigation related to unpaid, unaccounted for gas volumes transported on the Fairfax gas pipeline to the Heartland Corn Products ethanol plant. Before we proceed into closed session, do we want to agree not to adjourn our regular meeting so that we may reconvene following the closed session?
I would like to reconvene.
Okay, so we will either reconvene and take further action or reconvene for the limited purpose of a
Adjournment.
motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Okay,